So good, so good, so good.
New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. And that means so many new reasons to rack.
Because I always find something amazing.
Just so many good brands.
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Welcome to Why We Roll,
a tabletop role-playing game design podcast by the Stillfleet Studio.
We're your hosts, Chris Pickett, creator of the historical fantasy game Dance Macabre,
and Wythe Marshall, creator of the political sci-fi game Stillfleet.
Through the show, we hope to amplify new creative voices.
We chat with different indie TTRPG designers, talking through a range of questions that are pertinent to many designers, players, and GMs.
We hope to showcase fresh and even challenging ideas about what makes imagination-based games so powerful.
Before we introduce today's guest, a reminder. If you enjoy this episode, please consider supporting the show and all of our games over at patreon.com/Stillfleet.
Okay, let's find out why we roll. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Why We Roll, the tabletop role-playing game chat show from the Stillfleet Studio. I was going to try to do that really quickly, but I couldn't. I choked at the last second there. This is the only tabletop role-playing chat show on the internet.
The only one.
Certainly the only one where even gay space cowboys can get the blues. We're back for more Orbital Blues Month, and as ever, I am one of your co-hosts, Christopher Pickett. And I'm joined, again, as ever, by my good friend, co-host, and author of Stillfleet, Wythe Marshall. What's up, Wythe?
Hey, what's up, Chris? Thanks for having me on the show. You and I started to interview people we like about games we like. What a coinky-dink.
Dude, it's crazy. Yeah, it's weird to see you here.
Keep running into you.
Yeah, it's we got to stop doing this.
But I'm very excited today, though.
I was going to say, I mean, we have a third person in the room. It's not just you and I bumping into each other. It's an entire Spider-Man meme full of people with glasses and facial hair today. And yeah, today we're chatting with Adam Good of Stations, or Adam Station, one of two stations of the Stations crew. We're going to be talking a little bit about Orbital Blues Month, which you're contributing to, of course, but also just your own work and what y'all are up to over at Stations. How's it going, Adam?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on. We've been chatting about this off and on for a while, so it's awesome to finally join up with you guys and meet virtually, digitally over the webs and tubes and it's the zeros and ones and all the things.
Yeah, it's the good part that the internet was made for. We're making it happen right here for everyone to listen to, I guess.
Well, thanks so much, Adam, for making time. We really appreciate you. And I do have two of your books right here.
Oh, yeah.
Because I actually do use them in GMing, which is rare. I don't even use my own books that much in GMing, but I do use Infinity of Ships quite a lot now. It's just very useful if you run a lot of sci-fi games, which I mostly do. And we're here to talk about various things, one of which is Orbital Blues, which is a sci-fi game that you're now having written for essentially Mothership and, system-agnostic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's one topic, but I'm excited to talk about, science fiction and your approach to book design, because these are, I will say, you have other products, but I love these two hardbacks in particular. They're small hardbacks, so podcast listener, imagine a charming hardback book full of
can you shout out the titles
system-agnostic
of those as well?
Yeah. I mean, we'll get into them, but I'm speaking specifically about Infinity of Ships and I Don't Belong Here. And I know recently, Adam, we were chatting before we got going, that you've had a number of projects. So I want to hear about, Fistful of Stars, the Mothership Month. Not Mothership Month. Orbital Blues Month project is Adventures on the Greenlight Express. So I know that, and 100 Spaces, right? So I know there's at least 3 others that we need to work in. So we'll kind of let you direct us a bit. Before we get going, we usually do start at the beginning. Unless you want to jump in somewhere else, really up to you. But, the first question tends to be, how did you get into games in general, and how did you end up producing wee charming, tables, OSR style
extremely
tables?
useful tables, yeah.
Did you say wee charming?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Wee charming, useful tables.
Exactly.
I feel like we need to get that. Sorry, I keep hitting my mic. Need to get that as a quote on the website. Like,
Yeah.
come here for wee charming, useful tables. Maybe get it in an
Absolutely.
Irish accent or something.
We'll clip the audio for you. You can just have the audio clip. And like when
Perfect.
like on a splash page, when people go to your website, you can just have it play like it's a MySpace page
Oh my
from
gosh.
2008.
Oh,
Just assault
yes.
somebody with the clip. I think
Yes.
we're
Yeah.
cooking.
Yeah. No, this is good. I'm getting some GeoCities vibes. You know,
Yeah, Web 1.0.
do a big. Oh, I miss it. I miss those days.
I do too.
Oh my god.
I do too.
Yeah, I often think like I remember the time when there were more than 4 websites.
Yeah, that 5th website was like mind blowing back in the day. Neopets, when Neopets dropped.
Neopets. Did y'all ever use the plugin Stumble Upon?
Yeah.
Oh, it was so great. It was like basically it was like a randomizer.
Mhm.
Like you it was like a little button, and it was like you hit it and it would just show you a random website. And then over time you could kind of say like topics you liked and cared about and stuff and kind of like guide it. But it was just this magical experience. Like you push the button and get taken somewhere totally random and different.
It's when the web still
so
felt like a frontier to explore in a good non-colonial way.
Yeah.
As that was coming out, I was like, "Oh God, yeah, the next frontier, the Star Trek version of that."
Yeah. All the websites were like friends with other websites and weren't like trying to keep you on them forever.
Yeah, they weren't literally hijacking your brain chemistry to get you addicted to them. Anyway, so maybe this ties into where you started. GeoCities, Web 1.0, early internet. But back to White's question, Adam. Yeah, how'd you get into games? How did you get to become a station?
Well, I have always been and will always be a station. We are all stations in a certain way.
In our own ways, yes.
In our own way. Aren't we all in the end stations? So in terms of like how I got into gaming, in like middle school, I was really into sci-fi and fantasy. I read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy like cover to cover 5 times back to back in a row, which I think like probably explains 90% of my aesthetic. But and I was aware of role-playing games, but I didn't really have a group to play with. I was in middle school when Magic the Gathering first came out, so I played Magic a little bit. And so I would go to the game store and see all these awesome books like the White Wolf stuff, like Vampire and Mage, and I would get these source books and read them and just think, there's so much stuff. Is amazing. It just felt like kind of like other books, but that you could play them, except I couldn't play them because I didn't have any friends that would play those games. Although I think I played one role playing game, and I don't know what system it was, but I played like a bouncing orb whose special ability was projectile vomiting, and so it was like real gonzo and wacky, and I had a great time. And I think ever since then that probably is formational for my aesthetic too. It's like I want to be able to do anything.
Yeah, I mean that kind of just sounds like Troika, if I'm being honest. I feel like that must have come later, but
does.
Troika is the first so I'm getting ahead of myself, but so like way back when I was in high school and stuff, like played a little bit, didn't do too much, and then got involved in the poetry and art and performance community in Baltimore and Washington D.C. So I did that for a long time, and then my buddy Justin Sorois of Severed Books, who wasn't of Severed Books at the time, but he started doing like terrain design and then started writing role-playing games. And so like through my friendship with him, I was like, oh, I should check out this game stuff again. I ran a game of Age of Rebellion, like the Final Fantasy Star Wars thing that came out in like, I don't know, 2010 maybe. So I ran this game and was like really excited to run it, and like some of the people I was playing with were like oh, like the droids actually sound like this, or like the droids are like this. And then one of my players who, my friend Rick, who is like one of the original Stations playtesters and like a really good friend, he just decided to like do something completely different. And I was like, it was like a pre-made scenario. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And so I never, I never ran that again. But then I discovered Monster of the Week, and Apocalypse World and all the Powered by the Apocalypse stuff. And I was like, this is great. So I ran a lot of Monster of the Week, but this wasn't until my like mid to late 30s when I first started really doing games. And then Troika was the first system that got me thinking, oh, I could actually write something. So on Itch, it was like, maybe Troika had been out for 1 or 2 years. I don't know, but it was still like, I mean, it still is really exciting, but it was nuts. Like people were making backgrounds left and right and all kinds of stuff for Troika. And I was new. And so I was like reading it and running games with it. One of the really early versions of, not of Infinity of Ships, but of kind of like the sandbox sci-fi universe that Jamie and I came up with, we would run it in different systems every week. And Troika was one of the systems that we would run. Jamie even ran one session where he let every single player choose their own system and play it like that. And that was really bonkers, but
that's hilarious.
Yeah, but so it was really awesome coming in and seeing Troika, and then seeing so much content that like people made that weren't the authors, and also how easy it seemed to like, oh, I could come up with an idea for a background, and it's, a cool title, a paragraph, some stats for things that you totally make up.
Mm-hmm.
And it just really resonated. And it was the first Itch Jam that I contributed to. I wrote a pamphlet that used They Might Be Giants samples to create kind of like a sandbox for Troika. And then after that, I was just like, this is great.
That's cool. I mean, I feel like Troika, Wythe and I played a little bit once a long time ago now, like 2 years ago now. And we talked about it at the time. And, I feel like there's an openness to Troika that makes the play experience, just for me personally, subjectively, a little bit unsatisfying. But the openness and the flexibility of it really does allow you to kind of do anything as a designer. And it almost feels like that game it's a game designer's game in a weird way. But it's also just so like light and hands off that you can kind of do whatever. I
also feel like there's this energy with those games of inviting people, which is really positive, regardless of whether I even play the game. I played Troika before that as well, and it's not my game mechanically or like setting wise in the book, but there's a lot you can do with it. To your point, like I really like Acid Death Fantasy, which is a Troika supplement.
Yeah, Acid Death Fantasy is so good.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of games like that where I can see, even though I don't tend to do this myself because I've been really focused in like expanding my own little world of interrelated mechanics and ideas, but I like the idea that there are systems and communities like Mothership Troika have these really positive communities where people come in, they do their own thing, they expand it. Love, like, for example, we had Roderick Maxino on talking about Archiver and taking Mothership and kind of hacking it to do something different with like, what game are you playing? So now let's make it about art production, right?
Yeah.
And like, let's make rules for that. So I think it's cool that these games inspire people. Like I was really inspired by Apocalypse World and some other Powered by the Apocalypse games. So I think there are these through lines where you find that designers try something out and say, oh, wow, it clicks. Like, it's not D&D. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Let me dive in. And I know music is a theme we'll come back to. So just underline that. You mentioned They Might Be Giants. And again, this other book here, I Don't Belong Here, is like a Radiohead themed liminal horror Gazette, like as a tier. It's so
smart.
good. It's so well written.
It's so smart, man. Yeah. I love it.
So I'm excited to sort of get into some of these. To follow up on the sort of how did you get into games? Like how did you, or what was something where you decided you would design a game? And maybe you can tell us about Jamie, and shout out to Jamie, who's awesome, Jamie Station. How did you sort of find Jamie and start making games as quote unquote stations? And whatever that means, right? Like just unpack your thing.
Yeah. So really organically, I knew Jamie from, I met Jamie in the poetry scene, the experimental poetry and performance scene in Washington, D.C. in like 2003, maybe. Oh my God, that's a long time ago. Anyway, around then, and we became really good friends and have stayed friends. You know, do readings together, do performances together. Hung out in Baltimore a lot, which is where I met Justin and a bunch of also really awesome Baltimore folks. Yeah, and Jamie and I have been, we were going to PAX Unplugged every year to help our buddy Justin out at his booth, and just kind of like absorb, all of the things. And I think I think maybe like the first like indie-ish like product I got was like the Mothership fanzine that they were just giving out at PAX Unplugged in like, I don't know, pre-COVID times. This was a while back. So yeah, so we've been friends for a long time, and we've talked games. We played some games at PAX, and then like when the pandemic hit, I started playing a D&D game campaign with him that his friends were running, and then I had some ideas for doing like some weird sci-fi stuff, because Jamie and I like a lot of the same kind of weird sci-fi, and we were just, I don't know, we were like, let's play some games, and so we got a group together. It's the longest. I'm a really bad long-term player. Like I cannot complete like one of the campaign to save my life. One shot's awesome. Like long-term, but this is like a group that we played together for a long time. And the Yeah, so then the station, this also ties back to Justin. Justin did a book, and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name. Um, don't see it right in front of me. It's it's an OSR style kind of adventure supplement, where you're going through dungeons that are all based on the Seals of Solomon, like the 72 Seals of Solomon. And so each one was just like, the dungeon map was one of like these crazy sigils converted into a dungeon. And it was just awesome. And I think I said like on Twitter or something, I was like, oh man, I should like wouldn't it be cool to make a sci-fi version of that on like space stations that were influenced by this? And Justin just said like, I'd publish that. And that, like, just that alone, I was like, oh, whoa, really? Like, and just, I was like, and I think I had done like the little Troika supplement or whatever. And so then, then I just started writing. And so we have a ton of backlogged material of like building out these weird ass stations that are floating in space and time. And we would just run these different ideas of weird scenarios. And we would run it in different systems. Like we did Troika. I did like an apocalypse world hack to run one game. But right around the pandemic, we got a group together and played like maybe every other week for a couple months at least, which is a long time for me. Just fun folks that were like willing to like just go pretty out there. So that's kind of how that started. And then we, for a long time, we were thinking, we want to do stations. We have to do it for Mothership because Mothership is the big system. But we were like, well, it doesn't really feel like Mothership. Like it doesn't have that vibe. Like one of the stations I wrote, like you show up on this ship and it's like all organic material, and like everything sharp that the PCs have on them have vanished from their bodies. And like you land on this like sort of lush grass. And then the whole the whole rest of the scenario is like you're trying to figure out like what's going on this plant station, but it was definitely not Mothership. So we were like, let's write this for Mothership. And then over time it just, it percolated in the background. And then I would just do like other little itch jams and stuff. And I don't know. And then from there, it evolved in a lot of different ways. But that's kind of how we got started, just kind of playing around and having fun.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, it makes sense that you would kind of start with Mothership. I mean, it was big sci-fi system at the time. But I was thinking about that even as you were saying that. I was like, man, their work just doesn't feel like Mothership. Like looking at Infinity of Ships and other stuff that you've put out, it just like it doesn't have the same kind of like dire tone as Mothership, or the same like claustrophobic. You know what I'm trying to get at? That like alien claustrophobia that Mothership tries to kind of embody. Like your work just is like it strikes me more as like kind of like a solar punk kind of like idea, like a little bit more hopeful maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like I think that's absolutely right. I mean, like I think if you think of Mothership as like space horror, I've always thought of like our kind of approach as like space wonder, like and wonder can be very humorous and also dangerous.
Yeah, sure.
But like that sense of discovery and the unknown, so I would say like things that were, I mentioned Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Star Trek, I'm and Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, just like Contact. Oh my gosh, Contact's such a good movie. Like all of these things that like give a sense of like the unknown and the wonderful. And that's a lot what we played into. Like it's kind of what we wanted to play. And so then, when Infinity of Ships came along, I had started a playlist of song titles that I thought would make really awesome spaceship names. And I had it was like 2,000 songs or something. And so I would go for a drive and I'd hit shuffle and it was like all genres and stuff. And there had been, I think Thriftomancer did this book of like 666 Troika Mians. How do you say it? I don't know. It's
Mians,
yeah, like the little personality traits or approaches. And I was like, oh, we should do a book of just like 1,000 spaceship names, and like literally just that. And then Jamie was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's find a cover, And then we got in touch with Rob Turpin, this northern boy, and we had no money. And we were like, hey, could you do a cover? How much would that cost? And he did this cover kind of concept of all these ships. And then we were like, oh my gosh, like, could we use those ships in the book? And he was like, yeah, of course. And so it was like, oh my gosh, now we have at least, some pages with art. And then once that happened, it was like, then I had and Jamie had, all of these tables and ideas from other things. So then we're like, okay, cool. Like, let's do the gender table. Like, let's throw in like the graffiti table, like the bumper sticker, just like it made sense to just keep putting stuff in there, and just kind of go wild with it.
Yeah. And I love the utility of that because, again, and I think your work to me it feels very still Felician, right? It's wondrous and weird, but without losing that materialist edge of like, this is a physical ship. It's not magic. And I think a lot of, for some reason, and I think it has to do with how sci-fi maybe is approached and found by like kids in media, like through Marvel and they're essentially fantastic settings, as opposed to like Contact, which is, or Arrival, right? Or even zone fiction like Annihilation, which is much more toward the cosmic horror, but it's still not fantastic in the sense of anything goes. It's like clearly we're in a very specific world, there's specific rules.
Right.
So I like that you have these books that are very, very useful. You could use them in Mothership for sure if you're focused on kind of modern horror, but in space, you can also use them in more far future settings, and I think they do feel more natural there. And in terms of exploration and some of those modes where you're not worried about one entity killing you, you're maybe doing a politics or something else. But I love that you pay attention to kind of cultural elements, like everything is based in a joke about a band name or whatever. Everything's a song, and everything has those touchstones of like, yeah, but what is the ship's coffee like? It's just sort of like throughout every table is useful, and that really blew me away. And I see it in the other zines for sure. Like I like 100 Bastards a lot, so I see how you're sort of taking this approach and some of the same inspirations from system to system. But I do think Infinity of Ships, if anyone out there runs sci-fi games, is just like one of the most useful single books that was ever made for that genre.
Thanks.
But it's a cool approach overall, and it's cool how much you guys do look at poetry. I think of I love weird poetry. I love the Oulipo, so the Academy of Potential Literature.
Big fans of that.
And I think we talked about that a little maybe at Page, but I don't know if you have anything else to say about your process and like music and poetry and just kind of where you're coming from. It does feel different. Your work feels. We've said this a little also about Roderick's work. Like it's coming from a different tradition of art making as opposed to like OD&D dungeon writing, which is totally cool. Like I like Justin's work a lot too, and his work is I think some of the best for like point crawl, dungeon crawl. Josh Demansky as well. That feels like old school. It's a dungeon just done better, right? But you guys are doing this other whole thing. So I don't know if a question about music makes sense here, but I am curious as a segue maybe to some of your other projects beyond Infinity of Ships. How have you brought music in and poetry in? I'm thinking even the one about flowers. They're all puns, about vegetables and stuff. So you have a lot of weird zines, and they're all poetic.
100 edible spells.
100 edible spells. That's fantastic.
I mean, I think like a lot to unpack there. So like I really liked what you said about like Infinity of Ships, like tying into all these elements of culture. Because I think those are the pieces that have always interested me the most. Like you see like in sci-fi books or movies or something where there's just like some little thing that someone says or something that they wear or some sound that they make that just like hints at this entire culture that like they don't even go into, right? It's just it's like the little sparks of world building, right? That I love so much. And I think when I would start putting material together for games, like I never wanted to make like a weapons table. And like that was one of the things that I struggled with when I was like starting, becoming a designer and starting to write. I was like, oh, well, if I'm making a sci-fi game, I have to make a weapons table, but like, what's it going to be? Like laser, like the kind of standard things. And I was like, and I kept like trying to make myself do that. And then I was like, no, I'm just not going to. And then the game system that I'm working on off and on really has leaned into that, where I've like one of the things that I get hung up on when I think about designing a game is money, because I hate money. I hate money in games. Like I hate it just across the board. And I kept like being like, well, like if I write a system, it has to have some currency. But then I was like, oh no, it doesn't. Like I could just say like there's no currency. So a lot of like the game, like becoming a game designer is like figuring out what you want to do, but importantly, like what you don't want to do, and being like,
totally. And just a small aside, I think that was a big aha moment for me also with Stillfleet, was early on deciding that, for example, even though I love cats in IRL, we parent many cats, there would just be no cats. It would just not come up ever once canonically because it would be distracting. And I just started making a list of like, yes, this, not this, and almost like more like Oulipo and like Oulipian, just like arbitrary decisions about colors, about certain words that would be used, wouldn't be used from science. So I do think just as like a how-to, that's a really good way to do sci-fi, is just give yourself some of those arbitrary, like, we always use this word, not this word, we never say this, because it takes away from the world I'm building. And like, why do currency? I wish in retrospect I hadn't done that either. So another pro tip, you don't need it. Get it out.
It was partly, just from like my experience playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was older, and be like, we got back from the adventure, let's go to town, and then like it would be like an hour of people like trying to like find a thing, and I'm like,
it sucks.
If I wanted to go shopping, I would go fucking shopping, like I'd go actually get a thing. I'd get some new music, or I'd get some welding gear. I don't know. Like I'd actually go buy something. I don't want to play a game where I'm buying shit. Anyway. And then like the music stuff has been like the kind of artistic and poetic strains that I've played with have a lot to do with sampling and remixing, and just taking ideas and mashing them up together and seeing what happens. And I was doing that a lot with my poetry. I was doing that a lot with my art and performance and installations and stuff. And so when I saw random tables, I was like, oh yeah, it just made so much sense. And so, I just
Sign
have a
me up.
billion. Yeah, I have a billion tables floating around. And like I kind of, see in spreadsheets now. I'm like, okay, here's a thing, and here's a thing, and um, to talk a little bit about I Don't Belong Here, which is the Radiohead um, inspired. We call it like a spark book for modern horror. That started when I was like, you know what, I'm going to make a list of 100 Radiohead fragments from songs, and like that's it. You roll D100 a couple times, and like then you should have enough, right? Because everything, and there's so much there that's just like dark and weird.
Yeah.
Um,
And if everything's in
and
the right place, dot, dot, dot.
yeah, yes. Whenever, yeah. Um, and yeah, and then I connected with Strega and was like, "Hey, do you like Radiohead?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I would write an idea for a table and like send it over. I think we worked on that for like over a year and a half. Just like I'd hear like a song fragment, and then I'd just be like, "Okay, like let's build that out a little bit." And then that was another project where I was like playing with the idea of system versus versus system neutral, because as we were getting more of these spark spreads, it was like, oh, I want to write spells, like I want some of these to be objects. I was like not super involved, but in the liminal horror server, and so I was like, why don't we do like half the book is like written, adapted for liminal horror, so that if people want to play it in that system, like great, like this is a resource for them. And that's when I got in touch with Alan Hall to see if he would do the liminal horror, the solo adventure that he wrote, and basically taking a lot of the, like, I think that all the spells, like I just sort of like, ideas, and then he would like fine tune them and
Sure.
and make sure they were liminal horror ish. But yeah, I mean, like my favorite thing is like just seeing how combinations come together on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
I almost always use a lot of random tables when I'm running games, and just sort of seeing what happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fun way to run things. I mean, less prep for one thing, but then also just like it's also a surprise. You get to be a player at the table as well, which is always fun. I am curious about your process for I Don't Belong Here. Did you have like a particular like genre of horror or thing that you were looking for in mind? Like how did you tease out horror elements, agnostic or specifically for liminal horror, from the Radiohead songs and lyrics? I mean, they are spoopy. We all know this to be true, but like I feel like there's more there that you've kind of pulled out of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a Radiohead fan for a long time. Kid A came out when I was a freshman, after my freshman year of college, and I was listening to it really heavily when 9/11 happened, and I lived in DC at the time, and I went to school in DC, and so had all of us fleeing our dorm buildings, and just a bad experience. And for a long time, all I could listen to was Idiotech by Radiohead, because it was like dark and really pessimistic lyrics, but like beautiful and like danceable, and like I would just thrash around my room like dancing, and it's kind of how I coped for a long time. And then periodically I would just come back and listen to it, and once at some point, like my head just really turned into like a table generating machine. Like I'd hear something and be like, ooh, zip, like that goes here, that goes here, that goes here. And it was like some time when I was like listening to Radiohead, and I like was like, oh, like Ice Age Coming, Knives Out, like just some of the titles, some of the lyrics, they were all so like rich and really, really like, they were horrible, and and it was nice to sink into that, in a way. I remember, I think when I first started working on it, it was like middle of winter, it was cold. um, Trump won. Trump won, was happening, and it was like a way. Horror is kind of a way to experience the horror of the world in a slightly, I don't want to say safer way, but like contained.
Yeah, in like a
And
corralled
so,
kind of way.
yeah, and like I watch a ton of horror movies. Like it's weird. Like I love all kinds of movies, but like when I go back and look at my letterboxd and like my list, I'm like, oh shit, it's like 80% horror. And I always like the weirder horror, the horror that like like things are not explained, they're hinted at. I like folk horror. And a lot of times it's just when you don't know what's actually going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's why I think a lot of the Japanese and Korean horror movies like can be so good, because it's kind of like, wait, what? It's not like, oh, there's a guy with knives for fingers and he's gonna kill you. It's more existential. And yeah, and so it wasn't like that I was like looking for a particular genre or anything. It was more just like, again, like I was like 100 D100, like I'm just going to do that. And then when I connected with Strega about it, I would start to send them like table, and again, like I don't like writing a lot. Like I like writing short little bits. And so like these D666 tables were like such a tight space that I could just like just sort of do it, send it over to Strega, and then a couple weeks later, a month or two later, like I just sent them a bunch, and then they would get inspired by one and illustrate it, or they'd send me an illustration and be like, hey, does this seem like it would match up with anything? And I'd think about it and go, oh yeah, like let me pull this idea here and there. And so yeah, it was really fun. And so like, and then getting to see Strega's art coming together and then just sitting with that was really awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
And Strega's art, probably people have seen, if you're into at all OSR and NSR TTRPG design, you've probably seen it whether you know it or not. There's a lot of black, white, and red, and it's very like, I think it works well with Radiohead, right? It's of that same mood and intensity. Yeah. Feels a little like sort of metal street art. There's a sort of vaguely sometimes horrific or erotic hint, but often it's not actually, like, it's not in the image itself. It's more in the gesture, that tortured expressionistic thing. So really kind of cool. Like even the cover is almost, it looks like a wheat paste up, of like a little girl with rats on her head. And it's sort of, it's weird. It to me evokes like something sad and weird is happening. But again, it's not like horrific or an SFW, right? It's just a cool, moody design choice. So it's cool that you got to work with Strega, and that's a cool process where you're just sending tables and they're making the book sort of in terms of layout and art, and then you can bring in other voices. I do think this is a time to talk about your current project, which features your team, but also someone we've had on the show already a couple of times. You really like Kayla Dice as a writer.
Yeah.
So you're talking about writing, collaborating, and how do you sort of set up these books? Maybe you can. So, we've said everyone should check out, Infinity of Ships and I Don't Belong Here are just two of the book Stations has put out that are really awesome, very useful.
Too many.
Now let's turn to A Fistful of Stars, which is the new Orbital Blues Month adventure and setting, which is about kind of trains. So it also feels to me science fantasy in a way that I will say does not feel as Stillfleetian nor Mothershippy at all. This feels totally in that dead center, like Firefly, Cowboy Bebop, like why trains? Because trains are rad, So I like trains.
That's why.
Yes.
Because Westerns, yeah.
Why so space trains? Because space Westerns.
Because space
maybe
Westerns.
You could tell us a little about the project overall and your collaborators, and how did it come together and what's up with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So for a while, Jamie and I have been wanting to do like books, adventures that were in specific systems, but that had like either were pulling material from Infinity of Ships adding to the material infinity of ships, and like in that same spirit. And the experience that I'd had with Alan doing liminal horror stuff for I Don't Belong Here, like really cemented this idea of like, oh, I can find a really strong creative partner who knows a system, who's written for it, who's played it a lot, who's like good at it, and that I jive with, and say like, cool, like run at it, like go. So we've been wanting to do that for a while. And then at PAX Unplugged, Zach from Soul Muppet was like, "Oh, hey, we're doing an Orbital Blues Month. Y'all should think about doing something." And I think we were like juggling. We were trying to think of all these different projects we wanted to do this year, and I was like, we could, but we couldn't write it. Like we don't have time, and I don't think we could do it justice. And I was like, can you send me some folks who we should take a look at? And so he sent me some people's names, and I saw Kayla, and then checked out Kayla stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome.
Kayla whips, dude. She's so cool.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I was so excited. And then the first time we talked, I was like, we had talked over, maybe Discord or email a little bit, and I sent her like all the Infinity of Ships stuff, and was like, it would be like taking this but doing a book, and like we'll bring Rob Turpin back to do the ships, and we'll bring Lone Archivist back to do the layout, so it'll feel like an Infinity of Ships book. And I said that and said like, what do you want to do? And then when I finally met Kayla, they were like, Space Train. And I was like, yeah, yes. A lot of the earlier conversations, and like you talked about like the culture element, part of the thing that I really jived with Kayla around was like, we were talking about a lot of the social and political and economic implications of trains and expansionism, and all of the problematic things that come from that, and displaced communities from places where trains run, exploited labor, and so we talked as much about that as we did like cool space train stuff, and so we really jive there. And then what we're trying to do with A Fistful of Stars is make a setting that's like really compelling, but that also feels like, oh, if you wanted to run a space train, like here's a really cool space train, and it's really rich and it has a lot of stuff in it. We're going to have a section on graffiti, like people who will come up and graffiti the space train.
Oh yeah.
Because I love graffiti. But anyway, another time for that. But and
I gotta say, I mean, I lived in Houston for a long time, and in the Third Ward, there's a big train yard, and every single car is covered in graffiti. So that's like completely, you can't divorce that from trains, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been sketching out a whole space graffiti book, and so then when the train thing came along, I was like, there's going to be graffiti, right? Yeah, but it's come along really, really nicely. So Kayla had so many good ideas, and then we just kind of riffed, and I'll be like, oh, can we add this? Can we add this? Can we add this? One thing that I'm continuing to explore and I'm really interested in is games that have other types of games inside them. And so we're playing with the idea of having some like mini games in the game. So there'll be like a casino car, and like the players and the player characters can play mini games, like little gambling games or things. And so we really kind of connected about that idea of like multiple types of play experiences.
Yeah, I feel like Kayla's a good designer for that, and like playing around with tropes and the levels of what is the game we're playing at any point. I feel like they get that. I also love that. That's my biggest regret, Chris, with Unsunken for Danse Macabre, is not being able to develop a unique medieval French dice game that you could play in the game when you're at the casino brothel, the House of Wolves on the left bank.
Listen,
so that's a zine if anyone wants to.
Expansions.
There's always supplements. There's always supplements.
I'm manifesting it.
Well, I actually, let's make it a zine. We'll talk about it later. But I also love the idea of like introducing different modes of play into it. And like it allows you to weave that into the narrative if you want to, or just like have fun playing a different dice game as a character for a while. Like, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like the idea that if you're gonna run a space train, make it the best space train that you can run. Make it.
Yeah.
And also, like you said, it's like it's a specific setting, but in a way, it's a lens onto other things.
Right.
Orbital Blues is one of them. The mini games is like almost like weird. We're going into the dimensional bottle episode, but also you can use it probably in a host of other games. Again, I could easily work that in the Still Fleet.
I mean,
and that would be a fun one.
You've even got the Star Trek thing where you get trapped in mini games and then you have to escape from it. I mean, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
Possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
So that's coming to. So Orbital Blues Month is starting in like 2 days. And we've talked with a couple creators now, and there's, I think, 7 total projects or something. They're all really cool. They're all like this, which is one reason I thought this would be a good one, because I know Zach is pushing the limits with some cool creators and cool ideas. And I'm really glad, again, shout out to Kayla and Jamie. I mean, we want to get Jamie on the show, or maybe you and Jamie together, and we'll do a whole thing
we'll have
really
to get,
focused on poetry.
We'll have to get both of y'all on for sure.
We will dive deep into poetry in Baltimore and all of those things.
I can't wait. I will be out of my depth, but I'll be learning, so that'll be exciting.
So we have about 10 minutes. So we've covered some ground, and we have made sure to get to Fistful of Stars. But again, Adam, you've just done so much stuff. I feel like you just wrapped at least 1, if not 2 Kickstarters. I know 100 Misfits. So like there's 100 ships, 100 Misfits. You have the series, 100 Bastards. We definitely, again, want you to do something for the Grit system. Would love to see what you do. But do you want to tell us about some of your other zines, or just touch on things that you either just finished or anything coming up beyond Fistful of Stars, which I know is the focus, and I'm not taking away from it, but given you have so many projects, what else is going on?
Yeah. So we did 100 Spaces, which was supposed to launch in January for Make 100 month on Kickstarter, because that's the first Kickstarter we ever ran, was for Make 100 Bastards, because I had made sample Bastards, like music sample inspired Bastards for the Bastard system, and then Make 100 came along, and I was like, I'll do this, and I'll charge people $3. Like, I think we made negative money on that project because we were crazy, but it was fun. And so every year when Make 100 comes around, I'm kind of like, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And so we were kicking around ideas, and then so like the idea, Make 100 Spaces kind of came, and we really like getting prompts from people. That's what we did with Make 100 Bastards, like give us a song and we'll make a character out of it. And so this was it wasn't music based, but it was like, give us 3 words and about some weird space. And originally we were going to like do the art for it ourselves and like kind of like photo bash stuff. But then I remember that like Josh, this really amazing illustrator, Josh White, this concept artist, I had a lot of conversations with him during Infinity of Ships and about potentially working on something. So I reached back out to him and was like, hey, do you want to participate in this? Like, can we license some of your stuff? Can we get some new illustrations? And he was like, yes. So we are writing that now. We've gotten a ton of them, like really, really cool prompts from people. And again, it'll be more similar to like the Spark tables and I Don't Belong Here. Like, you get a space that's inspired by, time dilation or something. And like, there's just a bunch of like little ideas, that like, my sense is like the people will like do it if like they're coming out of warp or like they're coming into some new place and like something weird just needs to be going on, where they go, what the hell? Like laws of physics breaking and things like that. So that's the one that just my gosh, we ran that in February. So that we're working on that. And then the Fistful of Stars kicks off in a few days. And that's a new process to me because like the entire book, like Kayla's writing the book, like we're providing input, we're going to probably like write some tables and stuff, but it's very much like go Kayla go, having Lone do the layout, Lone Archivist do the layout is awesome. But then yeah, like I'm trying to think of. I feel like we have a couple other like big weird projects in mind. Like, um, I will do a little bit of a tease that we're working on a system that um, basically that uses trading card games to do role playing games, like super lightweight, using like Magic the Gathering cards. So like use Magic cards to like deal out a character and then just go crazy. And so that's one where we're like, oh, when we're gonna do that. I've been writing an Aesop Rock RPG, that's like all like samples from Aesop Rock lyrics, um, and have a lot a lot of ideas for that. That's kind of like my dream right now. Actually, is if someone could like if anyone's listening to this and like knows Aesop Rock and is like wants to connect us, like I'm putting a pitch together to take to his team, but it's going to be a while. But if anyone knows that and is just like, hey, here, take some money, take 6 months off and go write this thing.
Listeners,
we're manifesting it.
We're manifesting.
Yes,
this
exactly.
This is the secret.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, I feel like we talked about this. Like, I'm a huge hip hop head, so we talked about MF Doom, and that's another collab. If you ever want to do, hell yeah!
Oh, you wore the shirt. Did you do that just for a wife?
This is my favorite art from the book. This is from Infinity of Ships, right? You have the Doom mask ship. So I do think that's a cool approach. Again, I love Radiohead too, but I think it's cool to take genres that I don't necessarily associate. Like Chris, I love Dungeon Synth, but I do associate kind of lo-fi synth and metal with D&D.
Sure.
But I don't think of indie rock or rap having that much to do with RPGs. And I know that there was like in the early 2000s there were like MC Chris, like kind of joke rappers talking about fighting goblins, but I think it's cool to kind of seriously deal with the poesy, like how did Doom, put together kind of lyrics. And Aesop Rock obviously is another, person known for extremely complex thoughts that are often science fictional. So it feels like a natural way to kind of marry your interests in genre and form there, right? In terms of poetry. That's very cool. Well, I think we still have time. So I don't know, Chris, do you have other questions for Adam or other things you wanted to go back to? We've raised like a million topics.
Yeah, so. I know. Let me let me look at my notes and ponder.
Or I should say, Adam, are there other things we have not touched on? So lots to look out for ahead. And if you are just getting into stations, check out the whole catalog. It's pretty easy to find on itch, etc. But yeah, Adam, what's up? What else?
I was just going to make a joke about the things that we've touched on are like an infinitesimal slice of all the possible things in the universe. So even though it's a deep conversation in the cosmic sense, it's very small, but very important.
Well, actually, I do have a question.
Grains of sand, really.
Yeah,
we were talking about before we got taping, which is business stuff. So, how have you found the business of basically working in that system neutral mode, where you're doing essentially useful tables, but there are mechanics. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like the liminal horror book has liminal horror spells, etc. But it's fairly light. You could use, like I would use it not with liminal horror. No shade. I would just use my own games and use all these cool ideas. Very easy to translate, especially in the OSR and NSR. Usually, the math is not too hard.
Yeah.
Certainly, Infinity of Ships or anything for Mothership, again, I will use in my games. How have you found that approach of like, I'm doing stuff that isn't too specific, it's kind of its own thing? I mean, it seems like a different business strategy, but maybe at the end of the day, to the consumer, it doesn't. It's like buying anything else. It's just, do I like this cover?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think like it was something we really struggled with at the as Infinity of Ships was starting to get legs. Like we were really like, should we make this Mothership? Because like people want things for systems and things for systems sell. And like right now, that point in time, especially like Mothership stuff was selling. And, but the more like, it just didn't feel like us, right? It felt like forcing it. And also I don't like numbers. Like I don't like money. I don't like numbers. Like I want anything to be whatever. I want anything to be everything, everything everywhere all at once. And so like even like with Infinity of Ships, there's no sizes or speeds. There's no stats on any of the ships. And like those were just like one by one over time. We just removed every possible number from things because at some point every ship had like a speed and a size and stuff. And then we were just like, no, like it can be as big as you want it to be, or as small as you want it to be, as fast or as slow, or like take it into your system. So we went back and forth on that a lot. And it was also like we got really lucky with the team, and the timing and the support that we had, and working with Rob, who had like a really, Rob's work is amazing, and he's really involved in like the sci-fi concept art and illustration community. And so we, I think brought a lot of people in who love spaceships. And I think the most the most and the best feedback we get are from people who are like, oh, I wanted a system neutral kind of thing with this like potpourri of crazy ideas, and so that's kind of encouraged us to like really say like, okay, cool, like let's keep doing stuff that feels fun for us, and we won't only whether it's from the disco era, the ska era.
Thank you. Is for listeners of the podcast, this is our good friend Vex in the chat. You don't need to know the size, in parentheses, of a ship, only whether it's from the disco era or the ska era, and couldn't agree more.
Oh my gosh!
Does it have a skank drive, or does it have a?
Well, you pick it up. I got to introduce my son to Operation Ivy a couple months ago, and that was a really great parental experience.
What a treat!
Yeah. So I don't know, like people, it's interesting. I'm like really excited to see how Fistful of Stars does going into like a specific system. And and like how many people, new people come and pick us up, or find out about us because they like Orbital Blues, and then how many of our people who just like spaceships or like just weird things will come to it. Jamie and I also have like full-time jobs, so this is like we're figuring out what it means to be a business, like by fits and starts and intuition and failure. Like lots of moments where we're like, oh shit, we had to do that, or but
that's real. I feel like that's a very shared experience between all of us artists who are trying to make a business.
Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting because different models have to work. I remember I had a good conversation with Tony Vicinda about that when we were first moving to Philly, was only do the stuff you actually think is fun, in a way, like we're talking about marketing in this case, but I think it applies to production and even the core creative, like what are you making? It actually makes me think of our conversation with Josh last week for Orbital Blues Month about the things Josh said, he likes doing, and why certain forms appeal. We were talking about, kind of designing point crawls and like webs of information and that type of design. And I do think that generally as GMs, we do tend to rely on certain tools, and a lot of us who move to design like some of the design more than others. I like the long copy, Adam. I like writing long descriptive paragraphs, which no one reads anymore, but it's like, okay, that's an art form. I'll be like the guy in Japan who teaches cranes to swallow fish, but not swallow them all the way so he can get the fish out. It's like, there's only one of those guys left, but it's like he gets paid and he has a good time. So fine, if I can, but I think it's like partially knowing yourself and just experimenting and saying, okay, what do I want to do, not do? Do I like lists? Do I like innovative mechanics? Do I want to borrow someone else's mechanics? Because I don't like that part. And I think it's being fair, just saying you don't have to do it all. You don't have to be on every platform.
No,
you don't have to make every physical format. You guys like these charming hardbacks that are smaller. I like bigger books, but also it's kind of fun to experiment with form. It's also fun to like learn through doing. And some of that is financial reality and what can you afford, what opportunities are you given. But I do think it's fun to kind of have these conversations with a team. So it's fun that you and Jamie, there's more than one station, which we learned right before we started taping. Hence you're each individual station and together stations. So, I think that's a cool note. And I'm excited to see where you guys go next, really. That's all to say. It feels like you're heading in the right direction there.
Yeah, for sure.
We are at time. Any last substantive questions before we turn to our actual final last question to just shout you out more? But anything else, Adam, you wanted to tell us or ask or suggest?
Questions for us.
Questions for Turn the Table.
I just want to underscore what you said about like finding the things you like to do and finding ways to not do the things you don't like to do. That's really, it's hard and it's important, and it's like, I think in a way it's very like, we grew up in a capitalist system that's very rugged individual. Like, you have to do it, you have to do it, you have to do it, you have to beat the other people, you have to be better. And like, the thing that's great about the role-playing game community is that it's a community, right? And like, a huge, we had multiple big aha moments in Infinity of Ships where I was really struggling with the writing, and then I would get John Gregory, like, I got him to write a thing, and like, he got it back to me in like 45 minutes, and I was like, this is amazing, and he clearly loves it, and he's clearly really good at it. Like, I'd rather have him do it than me, where I'm like beating my head against the wall. And like, I think finding community and finding people and talking to people, because then you know who to turn to when you want something that you feel like you need, but you don't, you're not the right person to do.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that strikes me as you're kind of like moving forward in time with all of your projects, and it's becoming this kind of more community focused design where you're getting prompts from people, you're even like sharing, just sharing that load and really tapping into that network that we're struggling so hard to maintain, but we're doing it. We're doing it.
Yeah. So with that, I think we have a final traditional question.
We sure do.
And Adam, we'd love to have you back on again. Thanks for making time. It's been a long time in the making, so I'm glad it worked out with just who was doing Orbital Blues Month projects and was available for this kind of rushed miniseries, which Zach Cox, shout out to Soul Muppet, helped us put together to explore one game, which maybe we'll do more of these miniseries again if folks like them. Let us know. But Chris, do you want to leave us with the last question here?
I would love to. So Adam, where can folks find you on the internet? Where can we find the work that you and Stations have been putting out? How can we support you? How can we get you some money? And how can we get more eyes on your beautiful books?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks so much for having me on. You can go to 72 Stations, 72, the numbers 72stations.com. That has our whole catalog. We're also on itch under Stations. You can get Infinity of Ships. You can get I Don't Belong Here. We did a great zine with Roque Romero, 100 Strangers, which is just 100 sort of gonzo sci-fi NPCs.
They're real good. They're real good. They're real weird, and they're like, some of them are very uncomfortable, but in kind of like the best way possible. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I neglected to talk about that earlier. I could go on and on about it, but
well, again, we'll have to have you back. I mean, there's so much ground to cover.
So you can find us there and on itch. We also have stuff through Indie Press Revolution and Studio 2. So if you're a distributor or and want to carry our stuff, you can find it there. I'm on Blue Sky. It depends on the week. At Adam's Station, and on Instagram, and I can't remember what I am on Instagram. Social is so hard these days.
Yeah, it really is.
Anyway,
but no worries. We'll find that. We'll have links for everything in the show notes, of course, as always. So no pressure to remember any of the various billion handles we have to keep track of.
Yeah, and then we've got Fistful of Stars on backer kit with Orbital Blues Month, and probably by the time you're hearing this, you'll be running to catch up and jump on the train.
That's right.
I'd love to have you aboard.
Choo choo, motherfuckers! You heard it here first.
Damn! Wow.
Space trains are a genre. And Adam Good and Kayla Dice and Jamie Station and others are leading that charge into that genre, which, as Chris said, a little bit of solar punk and a little bit of useful across different kinds of sci-fi games. Adam, we'd love to work with you in the future. Hopefully we can make that happen. And until next time, thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks to anyone who's listening to this a little bit later on the pod. Thanks to Vex, as usual, in the chat with lots of smart thoughts, etc. I think that's about it. Unless anyone has a last thought, I'm going to click the big red button and end this here stream.
Click that big red button. Let's get out of here.
Click that button.
All right.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening to Why We Roll.
Our theme music is by the brilliant Sam Tyndall and Arpline.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us on all social media at Stillfleet. You can find out more about Danse Macabre, Stillfleet, and all of our games over at stillfleet.com.
Every hero strikes out on their adventure for a different reason.
To prove myself worthy of my mother's praise.
To write my own story and discover who I really am.
To prove to my family that I am more than they believe me to be.
To revive the god that has chosen me.
But when the fragile balance of the world is in jeopardy, and sinister forces move in the darkness, heroes will be tested, pushed to their limits and beyond. And it will be left to them to determine if they are up to the task. There is a darkness rising. Will they be able to overcome the challenges and meet this evil head-on?
For my god.
For my story.
For my freedom.
For the world.
To restore the balance. Modified Role Season 2, The Chronicles of Erin, a D&D 5e actual play podcast. New season, new characters, new story. Find us on all the usual podcasting apps or at modifiedrole.com.